Hello, this is Lady Boulay, and I hope you're having a wonderful day. Thank you for your support. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Thank you for your comments, and thank you for your thumbs up. Thank you for all you do to support the channel. And yes, we are commanded to love one another, whether we want to or not, or whether we agree with each other or not. And today we are talking about the impossible position that Usha Vance is in. Usha Vance is the wife of J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States of America. So let's get into it. I want to talk about what happens when a highly accomplished immigrant woman, Usha Vance, becomes part of a political machine that openly disrespects her identity, her community, and sometimes even her presence. And I am not gossiping. This is about the cost of becoming a political symbol. Usha Vance is not a passive figure, and that's why I don't feel sorry for her. She's a Yale Law School graduate, a Supreme Court clerk. She clerked for John Roberts, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. And she is a woman with a serious professional resume. She's someone who built a life based on intellect, discipline, and ambition. And yet, she now stands in a political environment where her identity as an Indian immigrant and as a woman of color is routinely mocked, dismissed, or used as a talking point by the very movement her husband represents. I think we all remember how Erica Kirk embraced him in, I thought, too much of an open fashion with Usha Vance sitting there. So it's a question about how respected she is, even in the party that her husband represents. This is the contradiction that fascinates me. How does a woman with this level of achievement end up in a political space that treats people like her as punchlines or political pawns? And it's not about her personal feelings because I don't know what she thinks personally. This is about the public contradiction that everyone can see. You, as a very accomplished woman of color, has become the punchline for people who are not nearly as accomplished as you are. How does that happen? I think it comes down to the immigrant aspiration trap, and I had to look to find this. The immigrant aspiration trap. This is a pattern that we don't talk about enough. But many immigrant families push their children towards stability, prestige, and proximity to power. And sometimes that pressure leads people into institutions or relationships that look perfect on paper, but come with deep cultural and political contradictions. These people really underestimate how the racial hierarchy works in the United States, and they think that they can penetrate it, and they have to find out the hard way that they can't. It's the idea that if you work hard enough, assimilate enough, and attach yourself to the right people, you'll be protected. But politics doesn't work like that. Power doesn't work like that. And that's why they keep talking about working hard and having so many degrees and how successful they are. They think that that is the path to assimilation and protection, but it is not. There's also the model minority bargain, the belief that if you distance yourself from other marginalized groups, you'll be accepted. And we know that we, Black Americans, are number one on that list to distance themselves from. But the truth is, anti immigration rhetoric doesn't make exceptions. It doesn't say we don't like immigrants except the ones who went to Yale. That bargain always collapses. And when it collapses, the people who try the hardest to play by the rules often feel the impact the most. And in this case, it's the Indians. We've seen it with Nikki Haley, Vivek Ramaswamy, Kash Patel, Bobby Jindal, Dinesh D'Souza. All of them have felt the impact of them trying to assimilate by distancing themselves from Black people. And we've seen it come crashing down on them in a public and an embarrassing way. And then there's Usha Vance, the accomplished silent wife. When your spouse becomes a political figure, your life stops being private. She could have asked Michelle Obama about that. Your silence becomes a message. Your presence becomes a symbol. Your discomfort becomes a headline. And when your identity clashes with the rhetoric of the political movement you're attached to, the pressure becomes even more intense. Again, I'm not saying how she feels, I don't know. I'm saying what the public sees. A brilliant woman standing in a political space that does not respect the communities she comes from. This story is about the pattern of immigrant women, especially highly educated ones, being pulled into political narratives that don't serve them. It's about the cost of proximity to power. It's about the contradictions that come with assimilation. And that's very powerful. There are contradictions that come with assimilation. You're not just going to assimilate into the racial hierarchy of white supremacy and become one of them. No, they are serious gatekeepers. So, this is about what happens when your identity becomes a political prop. And here is something that goes to the heart of this video. And I'm going to say some Indian immigrants don't seem to think that these racial situations apply to them, and they don't know how to catch a hint. Somebody like Ann Coulter has to tell them to their face, I would not vote for you because you are an Indian. They have to hear it, and they still don't believe it. Now, back to the Second Lady of the United States of America, Usha Vance. I'm not being a gossip, but I am going to add context to the situation. A few days ago, the couple announced that Usha Vance is pregnant, and the thumbnail says, pregnant and under pressure. Long before the pregnancy was announced, the internet had already built a whole narrative around Usha Vance trying to pull away. And I'm not talking about one or two random comments. I'm talking about entire corners of political Twitter, Reddit threads, and gossip accounts that were convinced she was looking for an exit from the entire situation. The marriage, the political identity, the spotlight, all of it. Obviously, none of that was confirmed, but the fact that so many people believed she wanted out before he even became vice president tells you something. It tells you the public saw a woman whose immigrant identity, professional background, and cultural values did not match the political world she was being dragged into. I don't believe she was being dragged into it. I believe she went into it voluntarily. I just think that she was shocked when she found out the disparities even within the Republican Party. Clerking for a Supreme Court justice is one thing. You are in a world of very intellectual people who have learned to master political correctness. So she wasn't going to see at the Supreme Court what she saw at a MAGA rally. What she was not prepared for was the MAGA rally. That's the reality of the Republican Party. So she walked into it. She just didn't know what she was walking into. So it seems like, and maybe it was the case that once Usha Vance realized that being a model minority was not a flex in the Republican Party, and she realized other things too about her identity, it's possible that she became unhappy and wanted out. So people were talking about it, and people weren't just imagining the tension. They were reacting to a very visible mismatch. And that mismatch was loud enough that the rumor of her wanting out became its own storyline. And it doesn't surprise me that being caught up in something like that, you would want out. But guess what? You're in too deep. It's an impossible position, and it was always going to be. This is not about judging Usha Vance. I'm sure she's a wonderful person. This is about understanding the system that put her in this position. And if we're going to talk about immigrant stories, political narratives, and the cost of assimilation, then we have to talk about this honestly. And this is honestly what it comes to when you surrender your identity to assimilate into white supremacy. Okay, y'all, let me know what you think about this video. Thank you for listening and have a good day.